Hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range. Now, back in the summer we went to Derbyshire, did some work with Neil of the Worksworth Gun Room, including blowing up a number 4 rifle, which you've probably already seen. If you haven't, I'll put a link up in the corner. Now, one of the other things we did when we were there was a bit of amateur dramatics, kind of ad-libbed, one-take stuff. It's a sort of lost patrol, lost in the forest, post-D-Day kind of scenario, showing off a bit of number 4 shooting. Now, we also did a boring old aftermath discussion blah blah video. That's here. Because Neil did most of the work on it, did all the editing, we decided that we'd publish the actual amateur dramatic scenario over at his place. So what I suggest you do is you pause this video, click on the link up in the corner or in the description, go watch the scenario, and then come back here for the boring old blah blah. First of all, we'd just like to thank our friends who gave us official permission under multiple provisions of the Firearms Act to shoot. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks,
excellent.
Paul, for the use of his rifle, and thanks Neil of the Worksworth Gun Room for setting the whole things up.
Thank you.
So we were reviewing some of the rather corny footage last night and discussing it. And to be fair, we should have just filmed the discussion we were having in the pub. But let's go back to the start. The overall scenario, how plausible was it?
Okay, so we've got two British servicemen. They've both been separated from their units. One's from Sherwood Ranger's Yeomanry, very well-known unit that fought through D-Day, and around July the 18th was operating with the Duke of Wellington's regiment. So there you've got you as the Duke of Wellington's chap.
Left behind.
He's been abandoned. He explains his story, so you've heard that. Yeah. And a forward recce patrol has been hit a mine, vehicle overturned. One guy's escaped. He's just got his rifle is in his tank suit because that's what they had. And if you see any number of pictures, why has he got no stripes on? Because they didn't put them on their overalls. So yeah, it's quite plausible for them to have caught up with each other. And
my character got left behind after the Dukes got stomped and broke.
Yeah,
and were withdrawn from the line as a result.
And they actually withdrew through the Sherwood Rangers Yeomanry's principal position at that time. So, although it's actually a very concentrated area and rather small for people to be able to get lost in and not see anybody for any length of time at all, because there were tens of thousands of men in a very small area, including both sides. They were up against the Waffen SS, the Hitlerjugend. Correct my German.
That was good.
We'll get there eventually. So they're up against that, and there's a lot of fluidity on the battlefield. So it's quite plausible people get separated.
And there he was whining that he kept on meeting Germans.
Yes, indeed. So how much resistance activity would there have been in that area at that time?
I think not in the context we represented. I mean, I was a plot device for the whole thing. Highly unlikely.
Put yourself down. You're an essential item.
Well, yeah, plot device is essential. But obviously there wouldn't be just a random resistance having a jolly down the country lane.
Getting yanked into the bushes randomly.
Having a concealed sten. No, if the resistance were active, then I'm sure they would have been given specific tasks and they would be doing it in pairs or...
Wouldn't be the sort of thing, the sort of time and place to be just ambling along, checking your rabbit snares or whatever.
Yeah.
No, with surreptitious Sten gun. Because at that, I mean, there was an absolutely intense battle in that area at that time. The front moving back and forward a few hundred metres at a time. You've got immense amounts of artillery. Something like 60% of the casualties were by artillery or indirect fire from mortars and so on. So and equally quite likely to get hit by your own if you're sort of pulling out towards the back. So this rural idyll of this sort of a bird song and a couple of people sort of there are tens of thousands of people waging an absolutely massive battle all around it. And I think pretty much all the local population, they're gone, or they're in their cells, or they're dead.
Yeah. So moving on up, the next chance encounter, and we'd decided that it was going to be a mortar fire controller. In sort of preliminary planning, we're thinking, okay, mortar fire controller, hence he's on his own, probably telephone line, private bloke, turns past the end of a bush, there he is, gives it some.
Because he's got no other option. He's just walked straight up onto this German. Now, it's difficult to really be sure exactly how much escape and evasion training people were generally getting at that period. It would have been covered, but we're looking at a phase for a massive seaborne assault and standard infantry fight through. So evading the enemy in ones and twos, more sort of downed airman, special operations executive kind of thing.
We might just have found a hedge and
Yeah.
hidden it. To be honest.
Quite likely. It would have been,
one way or
let's
the other.
just wait. Would have probably been more sensible, because you might go and run into your own people. They might just shoot you anyway because they weren't expecting anybody from that direction. Remember, the Germans in this period, they're all in camouflage clothing. That you're thinking, oh well, the Brits are all going to be in khaki and the Germans are in those grey uniforms, that'll be easy. No, the Germans are all in camouflage gear. Brits have got various bits in there. There were camouflage tank suits. What's that going to look like if that came through the bushes?
And in terms of the shooting part, although I knew where the target was because I placed it and set the camera on it, I came up with the rifle as it would have been, so loaded and made ready with the safety catch applied, which is on the left side. And so I did a snapshot. I came round, I was carrying it at the low port, as was the style of the time. So, saw the guy, turned the corner, flicked the safety off, and gave him 2 rounds with the famous CQB technique that I did so much of with Rob last year. It just brings us to a little minor diversion. When you're lying prone on the range, it seems really odd that the safety catch is on the left. You think, you've got to go a long way to flick it off. I come up on the camera there. When you're prone, it's not so great. But when you're carrying the rifle like this, it is right under your thumb. I mean, literally, your thumb as you walk along is under it, and you just push it forward like that.
Well, significantly, I mean, if I come round and do the same thing that you just demonstrated so ably, there it is where it's on. Can we see that there? It's going to be somewhat difficult to be just in the range of the camera. The point being that when the rifle's down here, as you're bringing it up, you've got the time to do that.
It costs you, that safety catch costs you no time.
When it's in the shoulder,
it's a pain.
Awkward.
But why would you have it in the shoulder if it's not ready to fire?
But you're going along with it back far enough. You're going along with it here. So in the time that you bring it up, you can just flick it off. And I think that's one of the bits of value that we've had out of doing this, and wearing broadly we'll go on to the details of the uniforms later, but wearing broadly the correct equipment,
or functionally equivalent
as Rob's pioneered to a great extent.
Absolutely. British Muzzleloaders. If you haven't heard of British Muzzleloaders channel, where have you been all this time?
And if you haven't heard of British Muzzleloaders and you go and watch it, a bit of dialogue that you probably didn't understand at all will become apparent to you.
So there was that aspect. So that was a snap engagement of a lone enemy who had been there with his binoculars and a telephone. Had no choice. Turned the corner, surprised him, bang bang, hit him once of the two.
And this was something we'll come to later on as well.
And then, okay, this is not good. So then we choose a different route, because where he is, he won't be. He is connected to
there's someone on the end of that line.
On the other end of that telephone line. So let's go out there.
And off we go again. And of course, we've got the little bit of theatre with our French resistance, who's quite understandably 2 people who are behind enemy lines, saying, "Well, is he a collaborator? Is he not?"
That wasn't yet. That was after the second encounter.
But there's still a bit of concern. Okay, he's just led us into the German. Make sure you don't do it again. Off we go.
So then the next encounter, we get led into a German machine gun nest at about 150 to 200 meters.
From where we were, it's about 100. It is. Yeah. It's I think it's 175.
Yeah. Now, in terms of a pure shooting problem, in a match, easy, piece of piss.
Absolutely easy.
Absolute piece of piss.
I mean, you could, if that was 2 Germans and they're sat by the machine gun, and they're maybe the SS at this period, they were all sort of 18, 17-year-old lads, under 20 mostly in any case. They're all absolutely fanatical. They're mad keen. They were a formidable enemy. The idea that they were the Hitler Youth, well, they weren't 14-year-olds. They were of military age and mental. So would they have been sort of sitting back like third line troops, drinking their coffee and their black bread? No, they might well have actually just been looking for anything ready to immediately brass it up.
Yeah, and where there's 2, there's probably more.
Yeah, but if you had just got those 2 people, you could just go, yeah, okay.
You take the left, I'll take the right.
I'll take the right, you take the left. Fire immediately when I fire, because commands to fire are always initiated by firing. Because otherwise, if you go blow a whistle or something, that's just that millisecond for people to react. Or even if you shout it. So, and you can't tap him because I've got the hand on my rifle. So, yes, you could have quite reliably shot those 2 people, but we're not in the business of doing that. We're trying to get away and get back to our own lines.
So that was a choice not to engage, which enraged our élan filled résistant.
Yep.
There. So we observed, we ascertained that this was a problem.
It's probably enraged quite a few viewers as well. They're like, oh right, now we're going to see a bit of development here. Now they're going to shoot those. They're gone.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
So then we have a little powwow, and okay, well, then in that case you lead the way, and then the stain comes out.
Fine.
Which is funny.
Yeah.
We like that idea. You didn't ask.
Exactly.
So that was fun, and the Sten.
Yeah.
On account of us being in the UK.
Yeah, let's just say that if we had a live Sten, we would not
run around in the British countryside with it.
No, it's a pot metal.
Pot metal non-functioning replica.
And we use its non-functioningness as a plot device as well. So
partly because it is properly not functioning.
Exactly. Well, you see
everything down to the cocking handle is just made of sort of cast Mazak or something, and it's broken off. I mean, even in the UK, this is to an extent controlled. It's a toy gun, but we do have the Violent Crime Reduction Act, which sort of means that if you've got toy guns that look plausible, then you have to either be making a film, which we were, or be a reenactor, which you could argue that we were, So for those reasons you can have it, but if you just say otherwise, oh, I want to hang one on the wall because my grandfather had one, you're not allowed to buy one, even though it's just a toy gun. But there we are.
Yeah.
So that explains the Sten.
Not even the magazine is functional.
Yeah.
No. Although what I will say for this Denix is that you might look at this. We'll maybe do a close up of it, but you go, oh, there's a screw. I'll take that off. And no, even the screws are cast. Every last detail. I mean, you might think, oh, well, I could convert this to work. You really couldn't.
No.
By the time you'd converted this to work, you'd have made one from scratch.
It would explode anyway.
But I do think that it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it really does.
You might want to weather it a bit, although that's something else I think that you see a lot in films. You've got something like D-Day, and we're on July the 18th, so a few weeks in, but all this gear's new. Everything's brand new, everybody's kit's brand new. I mean, you'd got yours blancoed, your webbing, which would be correct, but if the sort of tank crewman or the armoured car crewman has got covered in petrol or oil or whatever, it's just another set of overalls. They wouldn't be putting badges on them.
I made the point of letting my Blanco weather. I've not maintained it, so I Blancoed it before going to Canada, and I've not touched it up, and it's got this nice sort of patina of wear on it, because I don't think most soldiers would have been wasting space in their haversack with Blanco, and you see an awful lot of photos with webbing that technically should be dark green KG3 Blancoed that are clearly not Blancoed, and I don't think there were units Blancoing khaki buff, because why would you? It would have just been issued late issue, no time to faff with that and crack on.
And everybody's got so much to do. I mean, if you think of your armoured vehicle crews, as well as maintaining themselves and their personal weapon, they've got an entire very complex vehicle to maintain. And even if you've got something simpler like a dingo armoured car, well, you've still got to top up all the oil levels. You've got to do the tyre pressures. You've got to maintain it. Anything that breaks on it, you've got to fix it, or help the REME fix it when they come and do it. So people wouldn't have time for, if they've lost some kit or it's got wrecked. Armoured vehicle crews, all their stuff's hung on the outside of the tank. So you can imagine the extent to which shell fire smashed it up, or even small arms fire, as we demonstrated somewhere else.
Yes, bullets splashing off armour plate.
You don't want to be in it. You don't want to be near it.
It's the days before safety glasses, before anything more protective than battle dress and a helmet.
Yeah.
Now on to the last encounter. Now what happened there was full of élan and pique at us not having engaged when we could have done. He sees Les Bouches, and we had a target array down in a dip as if it's a mortar crew or something. There was someone out the front as a sentry. He sees him.
A charge off, intending to brass them up with the Sten, which doesn't work, obviously. Really doesn't work in all senses of the word.
And then we're left with a scenario.
What's he doing now?
What's he doing now? B,
because we can't see that round that corner.
We can't see around that corner. So clearly there's something up. Now you've got two choices, which is either run away and leave your résistant there, or
I'm surprised you didn't.
You've just got to the best defense.
I must say that practically everything that was done on this was ad lib. I mean, we planned all the where we were shooting, and we looked at all the safety angles and whatever. But the dialogue was all ad libbed, and
we had a rough outline. And you say something like this, and then we ad libbed.
There were a couple of key bits that we knew we were going to say, but the rest of it, no, we did ad lib it.
So, in such a scenario, clearly he.
So the chart. I mean, we assume that the sentry has seen me. So
attack is the best defence.
Yeah, what else can you do?
Because if you run, well, if you run into them and there's a lot of them, you're going to die. If you've been compromised, there's a lot of them, and you run away, you're going to die because they're going to pick you up. So I mean, we don't call it élan, but it was taught. Aggressive fighting through a position was taught. Now, because of safety angles and things, we didn't go quite as quick or on quite the same line as we would have done, because we needed to make sure that at all times the rifles were pointing parallel to the line of fire, and that neither of us got ahead of the other.
So we'd set out arcs. The targets are all set so that they've got penetrable backstops. We've got a suitable hill that has got an angle of repose such that rounds aren't going to ricochet and go up it, and a huge amount of. I mean, you see what was it? What did we time it at? It's about 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
So for 20 seconds of footage, there were weeks of planning, on recce's and maps, and then on the ground. No, you have to move that target. No, just to your right.
No, I can see that one's right. And we had to take into account the fact that there was loads of thistle that had grown up, so I couldn't move quite as far left as I wanted to. Physically couldn't. Would have had to mow it.
The other thing that you can just see in the end clip is that because bloke's over here on my left, as I approach the target forms a narrower and narrower angle, so I have to stop shooting at it. If that was combat, I'd have just carried on and gone in with it. But I have to turn it out, and then you see that I've got my rifle turned over, and these are a range thing. These are a range safety things.
Yeah, this was sacrificing a bit of realism for modern ideas of safety. Quite right.
And we're making a video.
Yeah.
We're not even sort of training to go and do this because we're deploying soon, and there's we're making a video.
So I pause when Neil fires his first shot, because the scenario was he'd see the sentry at the front, who was the tall target, figure 11, and then he fires a shot, and rather than firing it on the move, you stopped. So I had to stop so I didn't get ahead. So I wouldn't have paused, and then we decided we weren't going to stick the targets with bayonets because this is Paul's rifle, and they were thick wooden targets.
They're thick plywood. But also I stopped because I can't see behind me. So we've dashed in. We knew that the first bit was quite a little run in. So it was by stopping and firing, it gave them time to come up, and so we could go in together.
Yeah.
And these are.
And it turned out, it turned out I was level when he fired, so I had to pause. And then I gave it 4 rounds and made 4 hits.
We did loads of dry runs on this, but we actually ran it live once. That was it.
That was it.
Yep.
One take. It was the end of the day. We had literally run out of time. We were going to do a full speed dry run. Didn't have the time, couldn't. So we did it, and then you plopped down just out of shot of the camera because it wasn't quite as wide as you thought. But that's fine. Yeah, and then we faded to black and stopped all the cameras and carried all the stuff back down the hill.
And the big question is, will they march again?
Will they march again? Yes.
We shall have to see.
We shall have to see. So that was an awful lot of fun. Thank
Yes.
you, Neil.
Well, thank you for coming over.
Where we're standing
Thank you.
right now.
Thank you.
And
Thank you to our host on the on our SATS range and our carefully controlled and planned field firing area.
Yep. And thank you very, very much to all viewers. Thank you very much to our patrons who have funded this epic journey. That was a lot.
Well, I mean, you couldn't have done it. I mean, we as the gun room, we've supported it, but I don't think it would have happened without your patrons.
Absolutely. Just to physically get us over here, hire a car, pay for the ammunition, all that sort of thing. Thank you so much. We really could not have done it. Thank you to our ever-suffering spouses and families
Yes.
who tolerate us spending an awful lot of time on this. And let's just say that was an awful lot of time for not many rounds. How many rounds did you fire on that last engagement, Neil?
I think it was 6.
It was 6.
It might have been 6.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting on account of how many rounds hit the targets. Were you thinking?
No, I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking more on the lines of.
No comment.
More along the lines of. Good job. You had more than 5 rounds, wasn't it?
Oh yes. Well, there was that aspect. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, reviewing the footage of that last charge in. When you're doing any of this, you're thinking, this is taking me forever.
And then you look at it and it's...
I'm looking at it now. You can go, well, only aim shots count. Well, yes, I think we're at sort of 5 yards off the, we're 5 yards and closing. And we also need to consider, are these people alert? How long does it take for somebody there's a Frenchman over there. Oh, hang on, where's my rifle? Hang on, we've dropped my coffee.
Achtung!
Yeah. So it might look quite slow, and if they'd all been sitting there with their machine guns, we're toast.
We're toast. But if they're sitting around drinking acorn coffee,
setting up positions or whatever.
And it would have been faster in reality because there wouldn't have been those pauses. Would have been far more aggressive. We wouldn't have worried about the safety angles. Would have just been on them.
And my stem would have worked.
And the stem would have worked.
Hopefully. And it's something that,
and we didn't want to bayonet the plywood.
Perhaps if we managed to come back another year, we could set it up, the same scenario again, but just run it one at a time and composite it.
We could.
So we could do it full speed.
But the other thing we thought of, if you recall, was acquire a K98K next time. We've covered that elsewhere.
Yeah.
And actually do it from the defender's point of view, with some pop-ups representing us coming in. And then go, right, how long does it take to grab your rifle?
I'm drinking coffee with my rifle at arm's length. I've got to realise something's happening, grab it, flick off the safety,
clunk,
and so on.
And then use my whole 5 rounds.
Yeah. Anyway, so there we go. Sorry to suddenly come back into content after signing off, but right, it happens that way. So thank you all very much, and
thanks.
see you next
time. Bye-bye.
Bye.